something to add, right?
Okay.
Okay, so the purpose of this, we just wanted to do this because we just think it needs to happen for our kids, and we figured if it doesn't happen, it's not going to happen. So there's kind of two main things we wanted to do. One is centralized, whoops. You know what, I'm going to restart this thing because I just clicked without meaning to. So, one is the calendar. So we made a website, which right now is housed on my business site, and we can change that in the future. But there's a calendar there, and we can put any events on there. That was Ollie Smith's idea. Any events that homeschoolers might be interested in, so that people don't have to go a million places to find the events made by us, the homeschoolers, and the ones by MCC, and things by random people who are teaching classes in the community. Basically, if somebody wants to add something to that, there's a form on there, and they can just go and add that. And then there's a curriculum library for anything that you have that you think would be useful to someone, but you aren't going to use. You can donate it. If you come and look in the curriculum library, you can take whatever you want, keep it as long as you want. If you use it up, you can throw it away when you're done. If you think it's still useful afterward, you can put it back when you're done. Right now, it is outside at my house in kind of a weatherproof area, and it's ugly and gross, but it's there. So people can come anytime, but probably not in the middle of the night because we might get a little weirded out. But, you know, daylight hours, come whenever you want. Look through it. There's a ton of Saxon math stuff, a ton of science experiment stuff, a ton of social studies type resources. Social studies, especially for the younger kids, there's a lot of stuff. So that's just kind of general organization stuff we're trying to provide.
Can I chime in too?
Yes, please.
So I was also thinking, I had some books that I forgot to give you, Rebecca, but we had duplicates of like some classics that I like to read aloud to my kids. Like we had a duplicate of Sarah Plain and Tall. We had a duplicate of, I think, Little Women or Little Men, or, you know, those types of things I think would be great to have in there as well. And I don't know if anybody else has the problem of duplicate books, or even just duplicate readers for younger kids, anything like that. I think would be great to be in there as well. You can't always find those at the library, so
right.
Yeah,
that sounds awesome. And that was Sarah's brainchild, was the curriculum library, which I think is awesome. The next thing that we're trying to do is get some classes going. And the idea behind this is it doesn't matter if you have kids of all ages, there will be something for every age, so that if you wanted to teach a class and send your little kids somewhere else, you wouldn't have to drive around a ton or find a babysitter or anything. And just to get people together socially and learning stuff that is a little harder to do on your own, like the arts type stuff. So we're going to have, right now we're doing 6 weeks each semester, and it'll be 3 hours long, Wednesday mornings at MCC. And the classes are kind of just what people want to have. So right now, we'll show you on the next page kind of what people have said they wanted. And the expenses for the classes, we will either divide it up among the families who are in the classes, or we will look for grants to help supplement, reduce the total cost, or maybe even eliminate the cost. Am I missing something general? We'll get into kind of specifics there, but.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Nothing's coming to mind.
Okay. So this doesn't work unless people are volunteering. Every time we bring in a teacher who is not a volunteer, like a parent of a student, we're going to pay them, so that increases the cost. And there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. We need people to take care of finances, all kinds of things. So the classes themselves, we can't do unless we have volunteers helping. And that is where the co-op membership that we're talking about later comes in. The co-op membership is only required if you're going to participate in the classes. All the other stuff, we've been doing that for forever anyway. Carrie Villarno has been running stuff, and various other people have stepped up. It's kind of been a group thing. That's going to continue the same way it always has. You don't have to be a official member to do all that stuff. If somebody says, we're having a field trip to the pumpkin patch, go and enjoy the field trip. It's just these MCC classes that you have to be a member of the co-op to be a part of.
Yeah.
And nobody who is a member of the co-op is allowed to be paid for their time. Okay. So here's, as of last Saturday, I didn't update it this week, but as of last Saturday, we had sent out some surveys about what classes do you guys want to see. These are all classes that we either have teachers who definitely would do it, or we have teachers kind of lined up that we haven't approached yet, but would probably do it. And these are the numbers of families that responded. And since this time, we had somebody say, oh, I could do martial arts and volleyball and yoga and I'm trying to remember, there was another really cool thing that she said that was kind of in a different vein. And so those really should be added into this list. But you can see here the numbers. We have the highest numbers I kind of tried to put at the top. So art, some kind of beginning instrumental thing, choir, and PE, and drama are the ones that the most people were really interested in doing. So we would really try and make sure that those happen this year. And then, of course, the under 5 daycare, which we still need teachers for, but it's a much more laid back. It's more of a daycare than a class thing, maybe a couple of activities. I don't, were you thinking of specific activities? I don't know.
It depends on the age of the kids, really, because if you have a bunch of like toddlers, then make it a lot more difficult. I think it would be easier just to do just free play. And I will say, just it also depends on how many kids need to be or would be there, depending on how many volunteers. We would need at least 2. But if there's 10 kids in there or more, then it'd probably be nice to have another adult in there, another pair of hands to change diapers or give snacks or whatever. So yeah, and I don't remember if you said this or not, but each class will need 2 adults in the room just for safety purposes. I feel like that's across the board nowadays. It's just kind of a good rule of thumb to adhere to, just for the parents, the adult's sake and the kid's sake. But also it's nice if there's somebody in there regularly, to where, if something comes up, a kid's sick or you're sick or whatever, you have to be out of town, then you have a backup that kind of knows what's going on in the classroom, and knows the kids, and it's not just a completely foreign thing. And then, yeah, we would need also a list of subs that can sub for just to be that other adult in there, to be another pair of hands. So you could volunteer to be, a full-time aide in there, like a helper, not necessarily the teacher. If you are looking at the list and thinking, I wouldn't feel comfortable teaching any of these things, but I could be another adult in the room. Or you could say, well, my schedule's a little hit and miss, but I can definitely be on the sub list. That would also be a good way to volunteer. Or, we're open to ideas of ways you can volunteer.
Yeah.
So,
or
I was gonna say, or bring snacks for the daycare room, or something like that, or like a craft or something.
Yeah, and I'd say we're open to ideas about just about anything. This is not how it has to be.
Right.
If somebody wants to give us some advice, and especially if that advice comes with an offer to help, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, because it's hard to think of all the things
Yeah.
because, I mean, we're thinking of it from our perspective, but if you're seeing it and you're thinking, oh, this wouldn't work for us because of X, Y, or Z, please explain that so that we can, you know, possibly help adjust to make it work for you or um, figure out a way that, yeah, like I said, make it work for you. So, anyway.
Yeah, definitely. So this is kind of a sample schedule. Right now we have 3 rooms available to us at MCC, and we may or may not be able to get other things. We may be able to go outside for some things, but you can see we would kind of try and switch up. We'd have younger art, and then we'd have older art, and against PE, you know, switch ages types things. We're kind of thinking, so the under 5 group, and then the 5 to about middle school age, and then middle school age up through about high school. We'll have to play with that more as we actually know what is going on. Okay, so membership. How do you become a member? You have to be a member only to be part of the classes that are happening at MCC. Okay, and we have 2 tiers, and every tier you do need to pay some money and you need to volunteer, because we can't do it without volunteers. We will die, we will shrivel up. Sarah and Keely and I will probably like be in a ball on our beds saying, I can't do this anymore. So, so the 2 tiers are, there's tier 1, which is like the highest level of volunteering, and that would just cost $25. And that covers our, actually there's another slide that talks about where the money goes. So I won't do that now, but volunteering at level 1, and level 1 is things like teach a class. That's a level 1 volunteer. That's a lot of work, right? Tier 2 is $50, and you would volunteer at level 2. So this one I haven't talked very much. I went through and tried to write down what we were talking about, and I kind of put it in a more organizational way. And so this isn't set in stone, but basically I just put different jobs into different levels, especially after talking to Ollie. And she said, well, I'm not real comfortable teaching, but I could help with a ton of other stuff. And there's a ton of other stuff that needs doing. So we have 3 different levels of jobs. And as long as total you're doing a level 1 or level 2, then you're in. So hopefully this will make sense when I show you this.
Now,
So,
when you say 25, is it 25 per kid or is it
No.
25 per family?
Family, yeah. For this
And
semester,
is that per time or for the whole 6 weeks?
the whole 6 weeks.
Okay, so that's a bargain.
I think so too.
I mean, I'm also talking from a place of I have 8 kids, so if I want to take everyone to something and it's per kid, it adds up quickly. So I like to jump on the opportunities that I can pay one flat fee for the whole family.
Yes, that's what I like too. And that's always been, especially, I grew up in a family with 7 kids. I only have 4, but it still adds up really, really fast. So,
It does.
yeah, that's kind of where we're going with this. So basically, so you pay if you want to be tier 1, you pay the $25, and then you need to do level 1 volunteering. Could you not sprinkle all that stuff? My son is eating a snack. Okay. So level 1, you can see here, if you taught a full class, your volunteering is done. If you teach the under 5 group, which is actually, we're hoping that the teachers for the under 5 group we talked about, that at least one teacher would be there the full 3 hours for consistency's sake for the kids. So that's more time than teaching a class that lasts only an hour. But you don't have to prepare quite as much because you're not teaching a class, it's more of a daycare type situation. That will fulfill your requirements for volunteering. If you weren't comfortable doing that, level 2, any level 2 job is worth half as much as a level 1 job. So if you assisted in 1 full class, that would put you in tier 2, okay? If you assisted in 2 full classes, that would put you in tier 1, and you'd be paying the 25 instead of the 50. Does that make any sense?
So a half class, I'm a little confused on that
Oh,
one.
so I was just adding that. A half class would be like if you were teaching for 3 weeks, or a half an hour class or something like that. I was just trying to come up with other alternatives.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if we actually would do that or not.
So if you volunteer to teach something, would it be for the full 3 hours, or would it just be, I teach this one class for this 1 hour?
I was picturing just 1 hour
Okay.
for teaching a class. Yeah.
Okay.
Which means we would need at least 3 teachers per age group for those, because we have 3 hours of classes.
So you could teach a class, and then for the next 2 hours, while your kids are in different places, you could be an assistant in another class as well.
You could. Or you could just teach a class and then go relax for 2 hours too. That would be okay too, because you're there. As long as we don't need the volunteers, then
True.
that's fine.
Yep.
Yeah. So the level 3 volunteer things, those are worth half as much as a level 2 thing. So if you did 4 level 3 things, that would count as a level 1 job, and you would be paying $25. If you did 2 level 2 things, that would count as a level 2 job, and you would be paying $50.
Okay.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So
And this is all up for changing. This is just, I was trying to say, oh, how do we do this so that it is fair, it recognizes people's contributions, but we still get the volunteers that we need.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, we can change as much of that as we want to change. So I just did some examples. If I teach a full class, I pay $25 for my family, and all of my children can take whatever classes they want as long as there's room in the class. Ollie doesn't like to teach. She plans a field trip. That's a level 3 job. She provides 2 workshops. Each of those are level 3. And those, she's already been doing those, right? And she's the publicity officer, so she makes flyers and things like that. So that's 4 level 3 jobs. 4 level 3 jobs puts her in the tier 1. She pays $25. All of her kids can take whatever she wants. And then I made up random people because I don't know who else might be doing this. Susie, okay, she assists in 2 classes, $25. Her kids take whatever she wants. She has an hour free. She only assists in 2 classes, and it's 3 hours long. So she has an hour that she can do whatever she wants, or maybe she's nice and she volunteers more. Jane just assists in 1 class, and she pays $50 instead of the $25, but her kids are all able to be in there. So here's a question, because we have limited room and we don't know how many people are going to be there. So I don't know, this is what I came up with. I don't know what we want to do. If somebody says, I'm willing to teach a class, and then the class doesn't happen, what do you think should happen? I'm not sure. So this is what the co-op I'm in online is doing. They said if it doesn't happen, well, you still have to fulfill your requirements some other way. But if you're last minute trying to figure that out, that's kind of annoying.
I'm not sure.
So this may need more discussion before we figure it out.
I have a question too. So what if your children only want to do 1 class out of everything on? So do they have to go for the full 3 hours, or are people coming and going, or how is that going to work?
So Keela and I talked about that at the first meeting, and she said she would rather that people stay the whole time, but I'm in the opposite camp. I think, especially for my older kids, I'm just fine with them taking 1 class and then leaving, as long as they're not, interfering with what's going on. So you can be the swing vote. How's that? Especially, I was looking at calendars. If they're doing something at the school too, it would be pretty hard for them to do all of the 3 hours plus something at the school.
So you're thinking for the older kids, but I'm thinking of the younger kids, like
them too. Yeah.
Because here's the thing: if they only want to do 1 class, but they have siblings that are still there, then they're just hanging out, and we kind of need to, they can't just be unsupervised.
Right, right.
So
Well, I think that would be up to the parents. I would say if the parent is fine with taking those kids somewhere, or they know that their child is super mature and can sit next to them and be fine for the entire time, I don't have a problem with it. But yeah, we don't want a bunch of 6-year-olds running around and just whatever.
right. Well, and sometimes, like, let's say, oh, they're only going to go for one class and I'll pick them up, but I'm running a little late, and
Yeah.
I don't know. So that it means stuff happens. So that would be something to kind of think about a little further, I think.
Yeah.
And also, like, I could see with the older kids giving them that option. So maybe like a certain age group that can be an option, but maybe for like a certain age and younger, they've got to stay for the full 3 hours. I don't know. Maybe that's a nice like in between decision.
Yeah. And I think that would be I would be up for that. I think if we got some more feedback about what people wanted it to look like, we might know better.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, could older children help with some of the classes?
I think so. Absolutely. I think, I don't know how to go back on this. It works. Okay. So like there's this, there it is, game club. I put game club on there because I know one of my kids would love it. And actually after I put it on there, he said, could I run the game club? And like, we could pick games to bring in. And I'm like, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I don't know if you would, as long as there are adults in the room. Well,
would we need 2 adults in there if the child was running it?
I don't know. Might depend on the age of the child, or
yeah, that might yet again might be something to just kind of think about.
Yeah. And also how many kids are in there. If there's only 2 kids in a game club, I wouldn't be comfortable with only 1 adult in there, I don't think.
Right.
Yeah. Where were we? Oh, this is where we were. Yeah, so there's still a lot of questions, right? We need to hammer out, figure out. Money. So this is.
And I was going to say, we might, get to the fall and say, okay, this is how we're going to go. And then in practice, it sounds great in our heads. And then in practice, we might have to adjust a bit. So this
I'm sure we will.
might look a little different than the fall. And so we'll just to throw, just to be upfront and say, this is a work in progress. So we're not, if we try it out the first time and it just, there's a few kinks that need to work out, like we're not married to this.
Right. Any of this. And especially because I threw together this PowerPoint without even really talking to you and Keely. And I was like, well, I have to put something in there because people are going to have questions on this. So it's not set in stone. But this is what we have.
No, I totally appreciate this, Rebecca. This is awesome. I'm so glad that I appreciate the time you put into this. So
this is how I think.
You're doing really good. Good job.
So this is where the money goes. Using MCC, they cut us a really awesome deal, and we only have to pay $200 a semester for as many rooms as they have available for us. So it's even possible that if there was nothing else happening, we might be able to use like the gym or the music room or the theater. Now there's probably going to be stuff in there because the college has their own classes. Yeah. But if they're empty and they can schedule them for us, it won't increase our cost any, and we are guaranteed those 3 rooms for $200 a semester.
That's really generous of
you. It is very, yeah. And here is the cool miracle for anybody who is out there who doesn't know this. We were sitting there going, well, what if we don't have enough families the first semester to pay for the $200? Like, we have to have enough for that. And we were probably talking for an hour straight, I think, and it just kept coming up. And suddenly Sarah
said, well, okay, so a few years ago, there used to be a co-op, and you would pay I don't remember how much per time, or I think it was per time, maybe $5 a family per time, or 10. It's been a while. I can't remember, but every time we would pay in, every time we would come, and it was once a month throughout the year. We took a break in the summer. And so, but we would use that money for, snacks or supplies. There was one semester I taught at an art class, so I was reimbursed for any supplies that I bought for the class. Um, Anything like that. Or there was a couple times that the group, like, I think we had like a mom's coffee date or something, and we got together and, just had it some time together, and we had all of our kids were at a house, and there were some older kids that were watching them, and we paid the older kids to be the babysitters. So that type, we would use the money for that type of stuff. Where we had over $200 left from that, and that was passed down from year to year. There was another time we had a pizza party at the end of the year that we used some of that money for that. So anyway, I was in charge of it one year, and we kind of went away from the co-op class style just because it just felt like a lot, and it was, I don't know, it wasn't a great setup where we were. Anyway, so we kind of just simplified it, and that was just kind of the season I was in. And I talked to a few other moms, and they were kind of in that same season, and were okay with kind of going away from the co-op classes. Yeah, and it was okay. And so we went to trying to do a field trip once a month, a park play date once a month, and a mom's night out once a month. We've still kept up with that a little bit. I feel like we always start the year really strong, and then by the end, everybody's just ready for summer to come. So anyway, so long story short, we have this money left over. A lot of the families that pitched into that fund have moved away, or their kids are grown and not homeschooling anymore, or their kids are in, public school. And so there's only a few families left that pitched into that money. And so anyway, we were one of them. The Wilsons were another. I think the Carmens. I think the Mosers did for a little bit. Anyway, we kind of talked to all the families, and they were fine using the money however we needed to. And I know, like, Carrie and I had talked a couple years ago about, what to do with the money. And I thought, well, we could do like a skate party, or I don't know. There was a couple times I tried to set something up, and it didn't pan out. So anyway, yeah, as we were talking, I said, oh, wait a minute, we still have that money.
and then for the rest of the story, so Carrie brought over the money. She said, here you go. Keep it safe because it got lost a lot of times, is what I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I looked at it, and
I was like, let's use this before we lose it.
Yep. But I looked at it, and there were a lot of ones in there, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if they remembered wrong, and there's not actually $200, and we don't quite have enough to cover the first semester. So I started counting, and I'm like, uh-oh, there's not going to be quite $200. That's okay. We can cover it. So this is our blessing. This is our miracle. I counted, and total there was exactly $200.11. So we have our first semester covered exactly.
Yay!
Woohoo! So we've got to set aside $200 a semester to pay for that. And if we get extra, if we have 12 families and each family is paying $25, then obviously we'll be getting more than $200. That would be like $300. So we'd have an extra 100. And that extra 100, sorry, I have an example on here. I should use the example that's on here. In one semester, we bring in $400. We had 16 families, and they were all at tier 1. We'd have $400 come in. We would set aside $200 for the venue, and that way we'll actually always be a semester ahead because we have this semester covered, and that makes me feel much safer.
Yes.
And then the extra 200 we wouldn't need for the venue. So in the following semester, if we had an art class that was costing $20 per student on top of the membership fee, then we could just reduce that amount by the $200, basically divide that among all the kids and reduce that down. Or if we wanted to, I mean, we could pay for a website or other expenses. If we wanted nicer shelves for the curriculum library or something like that, and we could decide what to do with that. But yeah.
I have a question. If we do end up hiring any teachers, do we have an idea of what we would pay them per semester?
So I ran some basic figures on that, and so this is Ray Walter has said, yeah, he would love to do this. Okay, I haven't talked to him about actual what he would want to be paid per hour. So I just threw out as a random number $25 an hour. So I'm a private music teacher, and I thought, okay, if I was doing this, would I be willing to lower my actual per hour price is higher than $25 an hour. I'm like, would I be willing to take $25 an hour to do this? Yeah, I think I would. So we'd probably have to talk to the individual teachers about amounts. But if we wanted to pay somebody $25 an hour and they had 8 students, then total that would end up being $20 per student to pay for the teacher. Now that doesn't include supplies.
Okay.
And that's total for the 6 weeks. So like right now, I know he is incredibly generous and he charges $30 per month, including supplies.
Mm-hmm.
So add in the cost of supplies, it might be the same or a little higher than what he's doing now, but you will also have the other 2 classes that you get to do on top of his class, if that makes sense.
And have we talked to him to see if it doesn't work out for him to do the class at the college, maybe because last year he did his art classes Wednesday mornings.
Right.
Would he be willing to do it in the afternoon so we could do our co-op in the morning, and then he could, you could have lunch and then just
go there.
Yeah, go there for art if you wanted that option.
Yes, and he sounds like he's flexible either way, that he's fine with doing either option. And when it gets closer to the fall, he said, then we actually would look at schedules, so it's possible that it wouldn't work out as nice as we hope it will, but he thinks it will.
Okay.
Yeah. If the co-op is providing supplies, like for an art class, it might make more sense for the co-op to buy a bunch of supplies instead of asking the families to bring their own. Then we'll just prorate that per student, and you would pay the actual cost. There might be some things where you need to provide supplies themselves. So a bunch of people said they were interested in beginning band. Just like beginning band at school, if you're playing an instrument, you're really going to have to provide your instrument yourself. I do have maybe a couple of instruments that my business could say, sure, just borrow it for free for a little bit, except then there's repairs. I'd have to think about that. I don't know.
Or could they, I know some schools you can rent the
we can make that happen.
Instrument for like the semester or something.
Right. For enough to cover maintenance and those types of things.
Right.
Yeah, you could make that happen. There is one source for grants that we know about that might really work, which is the McCook Arts Council. They don't generally pay for everything for a project. But if we went to them and said, hey, we have these 2 art classes, 3 music classes, we could not go to them for the PE classes or science classes or anything like that. But for anything related to the arts, we could say, this is what we think it'll cost. They will probably fund at least part of that, which will lower it. But to do that, we have to open a bank account, which means we need financial officers who are willing to handle that side of things.
Okay.
Because I don't know if I want to add that on. Right now, we were kind of talking about just doing cash basis and not having to mess with that, which simplifies life a little bit.
And yeah, just housing it in like a money box or
Yeah.
like, you
Yeah.
know, like.
Yeah. And probably the first amount that we get, part of it will go to something that we can lock, that we know, okay, that is not going to fall under the dryer. That's the money for the co-op. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that happened to the money before. Yes.
Yeah.
Like literally, when I said use it before we lose it, I mean literally lose it.
Yeah. Because we are all busy moms. Yep. That's how life is. We know that. Okay. So we really, really are excited about this. I think this is going to be fun. So if you want to be a part of it, please come and be a part of it. So Sarah and I were talking, we aren't sure if the Remind group is really working well. So I don't know, if we come up with something else, we'll try to get the word out about how to get notifications. But there is a website. I'm trying to keep the calendar there as updated as possible. You can see it there on your screen. There's already a registration form listed at the website, and it just basically says, hey, who are you, how many people will be participating, and I think it asks how you want to volunteer. Okay, because of course you need to volunteer in order to be a part of this, even if it's just doing the publicity for something, just a little something, so that we can make sure that this actually works. And if you want to teach a class, we need to know soon.
Yeah. Also, if we do end up doing like a website, we could we could have an email list anyway, but we could have an email list tied to the website. So, if we have any updates, it'll go directly to your email, which hopefully you're checking fairly,
right.
Regularly.
Right. And see, that I prefer email, but I know there's lots of people who just don't check it. And so it's got to be text.
Yeah. But I think you can set it up to where it'll email you and text you.
In Remind, you can set it up to do whatever you want. Right. When you join Remind, you can say text me, or you can say only send it to the Remind app. And I think there's an email option. I can't remember. But yeah,
one thing I was a little annoyed about with Remind is that when I posted the thing about the curriculum fair, I could only use 150 characters to describe the announcement. And it was like, but I need to put a little more information, because it's not just, hey, we're going to be here at this date, this time, be there, So I feel like that's a little limiting.
Yeah.
And I could have made like a flyer and posted the picture of the flyer. I don't know. Anyway, I was like, I was a little annoyed.
Yeah, and that is annoying to me too. I think I looked it up once. I think the reasoning is that there are some carriers that still limit text length, and so that was why they did that. But yeah, it's very difficult to get all the information you need in that many characters, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're going to meet up in August, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think you could, looking back, I thought, well, probably what I should have done, like I said, is make a flyer, and I could have posted the PDF of it on there, and then you could have read all the information, like pulled up the picture of the flyer and then read all the information. So I think that's one way to get around it, maybe.
But that's a lot more work than just sitting down.
That is a lot more work than just sending out a quick text.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know what the answer is, because I don't want to be on Facebook all the time. I understand people who don't want to be on Facebook.
Right.
But yeah, if anybody out there knows of a great way for us to communicate where people don't have to download a separate app and it will get to them, yeah.
Yeah. Or, I feel like people were getting the word that, especially if they weren't on Facebook, better when we were doing group texts.
Right.
But that can be super tedious when you're getting a lot of responses, and, like Rebecca was saying.
Ding, 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 all over the place.
Yeah. Well, and, not everybody has unlimited data and texting,
right. And I don't.
That can really use that up quickly. So,
yeah.
Anyway. Yes. I'll meet up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So plan on meeting at Kelly Park, and we're hoping to be able to start registering for classes. I think that's everything.
Okay.
Is there anything else? I don't know.
No, I will say, going back to the, well, I did have a question. So you, with your example for Ollie, you know, setting up the, let's see, plan field trip, provide workshops, and a publicity officer. So if you volunteer to do stuff with the homeschool group, but it's not necessarily tied to the co-op, does that also count towards the
So
25?
I guess I thought it should, but that's
Okay.
totally up for debate.
I'm not commenting, I'm just asking. Because I was just wanting a clarification, because I wasn't sure if your volunteer opportunities was directly for the co-op or if it's for the homeschool group in general.
Right. So I would love it if we could, if anything somebody did for the homeschool group would count.
Right.
But if we get to September 15th and we're going, well, all of these people are doing wonderful things for a homeschool group, but we don't have enough teachers and assistants to run the co-op, then next semester that might have to be different, because we'd probably have to cut classes in order to make it work if we don't have enough volunteers. I mean, that's the reality. Unless we get enough volunteers, we just can't do it.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not a big deal. I mean, really, teaching. So I'm actually really excited about teaching. As I looked through what people were wanting to do, I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. So I'm planning on teaching 3 classes, unless there's a class that somebody else wants to teach that more people are interested in and they need the room. So that's 3 classes covered already. I know there's a couple of other things that are already planned for sure, wherever that, like you could do PE, or I'm going to forget her name, who contacted me, who said that they have gymnastics and they have a huge background in all kinds of PE type things. Savannah Thatcher. So there's plenty of things like that. We have Ray Walter on board for art. We have all of the like horticulture, cooking, and life skills. You were going to teach some of those, a couple of those. In horticulture, we have a potential teacher for as well. There's tons and tons of potential classes that people are willing to teach already. And so we need assistants for those classes, and we need somebody to teach the under 5 group. So that's, being an assistant is not that hard. You show up, you help with the kids, you know?
Do you have anybody, I saw that drama was pretty high on the list. Do you have anybody that is interested in heading up that class?
I can do that. I've done it before. Okay. I'm not a drama expert, so if there's someone who knows more about it, I call my sister who's a drama teacher if I need help. And I have some old lesson plans I've used in summer camps before. But yes, so that was one of the 3. I was thinking an older choir and a beginning instrumental thing, whether it's band or piano or whatever people decide, and drama would be the 3 that I would probably offer. And then we were going to bring in, you remember her name? Shanna
Hall. Yeah. I mean, I think, because I talked to her, I think she would be interested. I need to go back and make sure that she's
and so she might be doing the children's choir.
Or it would be maybe children's music, not necessarily specifically choir. I would have to double check. So yes. And I would say with the etiquette was one that I need to check into. I have curriculum that I was going to do with my kids, and it's talking about etiquette, but it's also talking about manners, what to do in different social situations. So it's not just, how do you eat at the table?
Right.
It's more real life, like, okay, when you walk into this situation, how should you handle this?
Yes.
What do you think they're feeling when this is going on? So it's life skills more than just, how do you hold your fork?
Right.
um,
Super useful for like my son on the spectrum. And
right.
yeah, just
Well,
very,
and even
especially
if
because we're
your
used to
kids aren't on
screaming.
the spectrum, like there's sometimes that you come across a situation and it goes horribly wrong.
Yes.
And then you think, oh, we never talked about that specifically. Okay. So that's kind of what, and I have stuff that we could do with the younger kids. I have stuff we can do with the older kids. So I would love to teach both age groups if that is an
Do a
interest.
flip
But
flop against PE or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And there's so many good things. I look at all of them and I'm like, oh, I want all of these classes to happen.
I know. I know. So what do you mean by life skills?
What were we talking about when we talked about life skills? I don't remember. It
I
was
can't
on my
remember.
list. Maybe
I was
personal
talking.
finance or um,
So would it be like every class you kind of touch on a different thing, like how to sew a button or how to fix um, those types of things that you come across as you get on your own and you're like, I don't know what to do.
yeah, that would probably be the type of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
How to boil noodles.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, oh yeah, we did have a cooking thing in there too. There's not like a real kitchen there to use, but they do have a microwave and a sink. We could probably bring in a grill or something,
Yeah.
Or maybe that class would be one that would have to happen in someone's home. I'm not sure,
Okay.
which would create transportation issues. We'll have to address that too as time goes on. And the
Yeah.
electricity, that was Keely's husband. That one made me really excited too.
Yeah.
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 Basically, like you said, I'm going to teach etiquette to my kids. Anything that you think, oh, I'm going to teach this to my kids this year, we'll just bring it in. That might be, if it's something that you think might be good for a group, that could be a good thing to teach.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, well, I'm excited for our meeting in August 16th. So, I think it's going to be great. I think the biggest thing at this point is just getting the word out
Yeah.
and just making sure people know kind of what's going on, what to expect, and yeah, when and where, just so that that's my biggest challenge is if I don't have it on my calendar, stuff gets added daily.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm excited too. I really am hoping it'll come together. I know my daughter is kind of going more for this type of stuff. She's more going with the public school route for choir and drama and things like that. But my sons are getting older, and I think this would especially be good for them. So I'm hoping it works. Please.
yes, yes, absolutely. So, well, great. Well, I can't think of any other questions. I will say with the lending library, I also, in addition to that, kind of thought, I don't know, the way we do science is we do science units. And so we'll take a specific subject and kind of delve deeper into that. So I was thinking it would be nice, in addition to just the books, it'd be nice to have like a science unit, like a box, and you can say, we're going to study electricity, and here's already some books on electricity that different families have contributed to this box. So you aren't, when you want to do electricity, you don't have to, scour the library for books or buy anything online. You might have a few that you found or that you found online, and you can add a couple, but you don't have to have all the books. And we also, with our science units, I like to do read alouds with it as well. you know, those great picture books that, you know, whether it explains it through a story or, you know, it's got great visuals or whatever, and you can add that to it. Or even just, you know, different supplies. Like if you're doing magnets, you've got a bunch of magnets. I like that idea so that I don't have to house all the stuff that goes with these science units. And then it's also not just sitting in my house, and other people can use it too. So absolutely. Like if you were doing etymology and you have like some magnifying glasses, you can throw that in there. You can have some books on insects,
and there are a ton of books on insects in there right now, and dinosaurs, and feather, I think. So
yeah, I would love to, like I said, you can just take that home, you can add stuff, you can do that, and then whenever you're ready to return it, you return it. So it's not, you know, you aren't under a certain time constraint to get it done either, which is what I appreciate, because it just, you know, in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, we can do that in a week or two. And no.
Life happens, yes.
Yeah, life happens, exactly. So anyway, so that is something else that I would love to see happen. If anybody has any ideas of, I mean, that is super generous for you to offer that space, Rebecca. But like you said, it's not ideal, but it works for now. If somebody has an idea of what we could do in the future to make it a little easier to use, more sustainable, and we're not imposing on the book artists as much.
Well, so I should say you guys really are not imposing, because that is the entrance to my studio. I have students come in all the time. Like, it's not a big deal for us to have people come in. Don't be shy.
Yeah.
If somebody walks in, we're not going to freak out. We don't even own a shotgun.
Well, I appreciate it. That's super generous. Yeah, like I said, a lot of those books that we had that are in there, they were just sitting in our house, and I hate seeing it just sitting there and not being used. So,
and so many talking about being generous. You guys should see, she probably put 300 books in there or something like that. So, yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff in there.
So I just, like I said, it would make my heart so happy if people would utilize that, and just, you know, that could be a blessing and an enhancement to your homeschool. So, anyway, well, I think that's it. Do you have anything else you can think of, or any other questions? Okay. So if anybody has any questions, write them down, or you could email or text Rebecca or I, and we can bring it up at the meeting in August, August 16th at Kelly Park.
It might not be the 16th. Just a minute. Let me check.
Okay.
I can't remember the exact date. That sounds right, but I'm going, wait a minute. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Yes.
No, you're fine. I'm glad you double checked, because there's quite often I'm like, oh yeah, it's totally that date.
For some reason I had a different date in my head, but it is the 16th. Yes. Okay.
And is it at 10 at Kelly?
Yes.
Okay. Kelly Park, the one with the rocket.
Yeah.
So over by the college. So are we going to be meeting at the upper shelter by the park?
By the playground.
Okay, by the playground. Okay.
Yeah, by the swimming pool and the playground and the event center for the college there. That's where that's.
Yeah. So if you go and park anywhere in the event center, you'll see us. We'll flag you down. So okay, sounds great.
Awesome. Okay. Well, hopefully we'll talk to everybody later.
All right. Thanks,
Bye.
Rebecca. Bye.